Ghost contact, fourth man down. The radio hissed with static and terror. In the suffocating darkness outside a fortified compound, elite operators were dying, one by one. Clean kills. No muzzle flash. No sound. Just bodies dropping like someone had flipped a switch on their lives. Somewhere in that black void, death was patient, methodical, invisible. And it was hunting. But when the smoke cleared and the truth came out, when command finally revealed who pulled those impossible shots, even the most battle-hardened warfighters went dead silent, because the ghost wasn't who anyone expected. If you want to see how this story ends, if you want to know who she really is and what she's capable of, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The briefing room at Fort Iron Ridge smelled like stale coffee and tension. Arya Vance stood at the back, arms crossed, watching the brass lose their minds. "We're not sending another team into that meat grinder!" Colonel Brennan slammed his fist on the table hard enough to make the sat phone jump. His face was red, veins bulging at his temples. 2 units, 16 operators, all dead or captured, and you want to talk about a third attempt? Around the table, the weight of failure hung heavy. Delta Force, SEAL Team commanders, Ranger officers, men who'd seen Fallujah, Helmand, Mogadishu, men who didn't rattle easy. They were rattled now. Major Garrett leaned forward, jaw tight. "Those contractors are still alive, 30 Americans. We have intel confirming—" "Intel?" Brennan cut him off. "Your intel got 16 of my people killed. Your intel said it was a standard extraction. Guard count was double. Fortifications were triple. And that warlord—" He jabbed a finger at the grainy surveillance photo pinned to the wall. "That bastard we trained, who knows every move we'll make, is sitting in there like he owns the damn desert." Silence. Arya studied the photo. Malik Rashid, former Afghan National Army, trained by U.S. Special Forces in counterinsurgency, close-quarters combat, operational planning. Then he'd gone rogue, taken his knowledge, and built something uglier. A private army. A fortress. And now, 30 American civilian contractors were zip-tied in a basement somewhere inside that compound, waiting to be paraded on camera before their executions. The Pentagon was scrambling, the media was circling, and the clock was ticking. "We have 72 hours before he starts filming." Garrett's voice was quieter now, almost pleading. "After that, it's not just their lives. It's a propaganda win that'll recruit thousands." "Then we level the place," someone muttered from across the table. "Call in an airstrike, take the whole compound off the map." "With our people inside?" another voice snapped back. "You want to explain that to their families?" The argument spiraled. Voices overlapping, strategies proposed and shredded. Every option led back to the same conclusion. More casualties, more failures, more flags draped over coffins. Arya shifted her weight, her gaze drifting to the topographical map spread across the table. Satellite imagery, compound layout, guard rotations, defensive positions. And then, there. A thin blue line threading through the terrain like a vein. The irrigation canal system, old, Soviet era, still functional, ran within 450 meters of the compound's northern perimeter. Her eyes narrowed. "Staff Sergeant Vance." She blinked. Colonel Brennan was staring at her now, his face still flushed with frustration. "You've been awful quiet back there. You got something to add, or are you just here for the show?" Every head in the room turned. Arya pushed off the wall and walked forward, boots silent on the linoleum. She didn't speak until she reached the table, her hand hovering over the map. "The canal," she said simply. Brennan frowned. "What about it?" "It's your entry point." A few officers exchanged glances. Someone scoffed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Through the water?" Captain Reese shook his head, leaning back in his chair like she'd just suggested riding in on a unicorn. "That's a death trap. Canal's exposed for over 2 clicks. Thermal scopes, night vision, motion sensors. They'd light you up before you got within a mile. Not if they don't see you. You can't hide in open water, Sergeant." Arya's eyes didn't leave the map. "You can if you don't surface." The room went still. Major Garrett tilted his head. "You're talking about a full submersion approach, in freezing canal water, for hours." "Yes, sir." "That's not just dangerous, that's borderline suicidal. Core temperature drops, hypothermia sets in, you lose motor function." "I know the risks." "Do you?" Reese's voice had an edge now. Because what you're describing isn't some training exercise. That's a solo deep recon insertion through hostile terrain with zero backup, zero margin for error. And if you screw up, if you so much as twitch wrong, you're dead and those hostages are still screwed. Arya finally looked up. Her expression was flat, calm, unshakable. I've done it before. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Brennan leaned forward, his eyes hard. When? Last year. Al-Hasaka province. Target was an ISIS bomb maker, had a safe house on a river. Thermal coverage, guard patrols, the works. I went through the water, 4 hours submerged, took the shot at 380 meters. Target eliminated. Zero collateral, zero compromise. A beat of silence. Then Reese laughed, short, sharp, disbelieving. You expect us to believe you held your breath for 4 hours? I didn't hold my breath. Arya's tone didn't change. I used a closed-circuit rebreather, no bubbles, no thermal signature if you stay below the surface. Slow your heart rate, control your body temp, and you're a ghost. Until you freeze to death. Thermal undergarments, layered wetsuit, controlled breathing to maintain core heat. I've tested it down to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, stayed operational. Garrett studied her, his expression unreadable. And the shot? 4 hours in freezing water, muscles stiff, hands numb. You're telling me you made a clean kill at nearly 400 meters? Arya's gaze didn't waver. Yes, sir. Another silence. This one heavier. Brennan sat back, rubbing his jaw. This is insane. It's the only option that doesn't get more people killed, Arya said quietly. Standard breach? They see you coming. Helo insertion? They hear you. Armor? They're dug in with RPGs and heavy machine guns. But water? She tapped the canal on the map. They're not watching the water. Nobody watches the water. Because nobody's stupid enough to use it, Reese muttered. Arya's eyes flicked to him. Or smart enough. The tension crackled. Garrett cleared his throat. Let's say, hypothetically, we entertain this. Walk us through it, step by step. Arya turned back to the map, her voice shifting into mission mode. Crisp, clinical, precise. Insertion point here. She tapped a spot 2 kilometers north. I enter the canal at 2200 hours. Current flows south at roughly 1.2 meters per second. I use it to carry me in. Minimal movement, minimal energy expenditure. Full submersion, rebreather system. IR suppressed gear. I reach firing position here. She slid her finger down the canal. 450 meters from the primary structure. That's within effective range for my rifle. And then what? Garrett asked. You take out the guards? There's at least 30 hostiles in that compound. I don't take out all of them. I create chaos. Precision targets, leadership first. Rashid, his lieutenants. The men with radios and authority. Once the head's cut off, the body panics. That's when your QRF moves in. Fast ropes, breach teams, overwhelming force while they're scattered and confused. Brennan's eyes narrowed. You're talking about a coordinated strike. That means timing down to the second. If you're off by even a minute, I won't be. How can you be sure? Arya met his gaze. Because I don't miss, sir. The room fell silent again. Reese shook his head slowly, a bitter smile on his lips. This is insane. You're asking us to bet 30 lives on one shooter sitting in freezing water hoping she doesn't get spotted. I'm not hoping, Arya said. I'm guaranteeing. There are no guarantees in war. There are if you do it right. Brennan stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. He paced to the window, staring out at the desert twilight. His hands were clasped behind his back, knuckles white. You really think you can pull this off? His voice was quieter now, almost tired. Yes, sir. If you're wrong, if you fail, those hostages die. And you die. And we'll have nothing to show for it except more body bags and another damn apology to make. Arya didn't flinch. If I don't try, they die anyway. At least this way there's a chance. Brennan turned, his eyes hard and searching. Why you? Why not a SEAL sniper? A Delta marksman? Someone with what, sir? A dick? The room went dead silent. Several officers stiffened. Garrett's eyebrows shot up. Reese's jaw tightened. Arya's expression didn't change. You've had SEALs, you've had Delta. They're dead. Rashid knows how they think because we taught him how they think. He knows their tactics, their entry points, their patterns, but he doesn't know me, and he sure as hell won't expect what I'm about to do. Brennan stared at her for a long, hard moment. Then slowly, he nodded. All right. He turned back to the table. Garrett, get her everything she needs. Weapons, gear, support. If she says she can do this, we give her the shot. He paused, his voice dropping. But Vance, if you pull this off, you're a hero. If you don't, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Arya nodded once. Understood, sir. 3 hours later, Arya was in the armory. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a harsh white glow. The air smelled like gun oil and metal. Along the walls, racks of weapons gleamed, rifles, sidearms, explosives, every tool of war imaginable. Arya moved through the room with quiet efficiency, pulling what she needed. A custom-built bolt-action rifle, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. Effective range, 1,500 meters. Suppressor attached, scope zeroed to her exact specifications. A dive knife, ceramic blade, no metal signature. A rebreather rig, closed circuit, no bubbles, no noise. Thermal undergarments, wetsuit, gloves. And finally, her sidearm. A Sig Sauer P226, 15 rounds, suppressed, just in case. She worked in silence, her movements precise, methodical. Every piece of gear was checked, double-checked. There was no room for error. Quite the setup. She turned. Captain Reese stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her. His expression was unreadable. Captain, Arya said evenly. He stepped inside, his boots heavy on the concrete floor. You really think you're going to pull this off? I don't think. I know. Reese snorted. Confidence is good. Arrogance gets you killed. There's a difference between arrogance and competence. He studied her for a moment, then shook his head. You know what the guys are saying, right? Down in the barracks? Arya didn't answer. They're calling it a publicity stunt, a diversity play. Send the woman in, make headlines, check a box. He leaned against the wall, his tone casual but sharp. And if she fails? Well, we tried, but at least we looked progressive. Arya's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed calm. Is that what you think? Reese shrugged. I think the Army loves a good story. And you? You're a hell of a story. First woman sniper to pass selection. Record scores on the range, all the metrics, all the headlines. He paused. But metrics don't mean much when bullets start flying. Arya turned back to her gear, sliding a magazine into her sidearm with a sharp click. Then I guess we'll see. Yeah. Reese pushed off the wall, moving toward the door. We will. He stopped in the threshold, glancing back. For what it's worth. His voice was quieter now. I hope you prove me wrong. Then he was gone. Arya stood alone in the armory, her hands steady, her breathing slow. She didn't need his approval. She didn't need anyone's approval. She just needed to do the job. The night was cold and moonless. Arya stood at the edge of the insertion point, staring down at the canal. The water was black, reflecting nothing, silent, waiting. Behind her, a small support team prepped the final checks. Radio frequencies, extraction coordinates, contingency plans. Major Garrett approached, his face grim in the dim light. Comms check, he said. Arya tapped her earpiece. Lima 7, radio check. Lima 7, I read you 5x5, came the reply from the command tent. Garrett nodded. You've got 72 hours before Rashid starts executing hostages. Intel says he's planning to film it. Make an example. Once that footage goes live, I know. He hesitated. If things go sideways, if you're compromised, I won't be. If you are, Garrett pressed, we can't extract you, not without blowing the entire operation. You'll be on your own. Arya met his eyes. I've always been on my own, sir. Garrett's expression softened slightly. Good luck, Sergeant. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and stepped into the water. The cold hit her like a fist, sharp, brutal, immediate. Her breath caught for half a second before training took over. She controlled it, slowed it, let her body adjust. Then she sank beneath the surface and disappeared. The world underwater was silent. No sound but the faint hum of the rebreather. No light but the distant, distorted glow of stars far above. Arya drifted with the current, her body horizontal, her movements minimal. Every muscle was controlled, every breath measured. The cold gnawed at her, relentless and patient. It crept through the wetsuit, through the thermal layers, searching for warmth to steal. She ignored it. Her mind focused on the rhythm. Breathe, count, drift, breathe. Time became fluid. Minutes stretched, hours compressed. She surfaced only once, briefly, just her eyes above the waterline, to check her position. The compound loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the starless sky. Lights flickered along the perimeter. Guard towers, patrols. She sank again, deeper. The current carried her forward, closer. By the time she reached her firing position, her core temperature had dropped to dangerous levels. Her fingers were numb, her muscles stiff, but her mind was clear. She anchored herself against the canal bank, her rifle emerging from the water like something prehistoric. Slow, deliberate. The scope settled against her eye. Through the lens, the compound sharpened into focus. Guard tower. 2 hostiles, a K-47 smoking, relaxed. Courtyard. 4 more. Patrolling. Boots crunching on gravel. And there, center building, 2nd floor. A window. Malik Rashid. He stood framed in the light, gesturing to someone off-screen. Confident. Untouchable. Arya's breath slowed. Wind. Negligible. Distance, 453 meters. Elevation, slight drop. Humidity, dry. She adjusted. Her finger rested on the trigger. And then, movement. Rashid turned, dragging someone into view. A hostage. Male. Mid-30s, bruised, terrified. A camera crew set up behind him. Arya's pulse didn't spike. It slowed. She knew what was about to happen. Rashid pulled a knife from his belt, holding it up to the camera. Theatrics. A show. The hostage was shaking, tears streaming down his face. Arya's world narrowed to a single point. The crosshairs settled on Rashid's temple. She exhaled, held, and pulled the trigger. The rifle cracked, a sound swallowed instantly by the suppressor. Rashid's head snapped sideways, his body crumpled. The knife clattered to the floor. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Then chaos erupted. Shouting, confusion, guards scrambling, trying to locate the source of the shot. Arya didn't wait. Bolt back. Brass ejected. New round chambered. Guard tower. Left hostile. Crack, down. Right hostile. Turning, raising his rifle. Crack, down. Courtyard. 4 hostiles running toward the building. Crack, 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 crack. 4 bodies hit the dirt in rapid succession. Panic spread like wildfire. Contact! Contact! Where? I don't... Crack. Another guard dropped mid-sentence. Arya moved like a machine. Smooth. Relentless. Each shot calculated. Each target eliminated. But the compound was waking up. More guards poured out of the buildings. Muzzle flashes lit up the night as they fired blindly into the darkness. Bullets tore into the canal around her, sending up geysers of water. Too close. Arya shifted position, letting the current carry her 20 meters downstream. She resurfaced just long enough to acquire her next target. A guard with a radio, screaming coordinates into the handset. Crack. Silence. Her earpiece crackled. Lima 7, this is Overwatch. QRF is inbound. ETA 4 minutes. Hold position. Arya didn't respond. She was already lining up the next shot. Another guard. Then another. Each kill bought seconds. Seconds meant lives. And then rotors. Deep. Heavy. Growing louder. The helicopters roared over the horizon. Black shapes against a blacker sky. Arya sank beneath the water as the first helo descended. Fast ropes dropping. Boots hitting the ground. The assault team stormed the compound. Gunfire erupted. Sharp, controlled bursts. Flashbangs detonated. Smoke billowed. It was over in minutes. By the time Arya hauled herself out of the canal, her body was shaking violently. Her teeth chattered. Her vision blurred, but she stayed on her feet. Medics rushed toward her, wrapping her in thermal blankets, checking her vitals. Jesus Christ, her temp's at 94. Get her warm now. Someone pressed a heat pack into her hands. Another draped a second blanket over her shoulders. Through the chaos, she saw them. The hostages. 30 faces. Exhausted. Terrified. Alive. Major Garrett appeared, his expression a mix of relief and disbelief. All hostiles down, all hostages secure. He stared at her. How the hell did you... Arya didn't answer. She just turned and walked toward the extraction bird, her boots squelching with every step. 3 weeks later, Arya stood in a briefing room that felt smaller now. The same commanders, the same table, but the air was different. Colonel Brennan sat at the head, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Captain Reese, Major Garrett, the others. No one spoke. Brennan finally broke the silence. 30 hostages extracted, 0 friendly casualties, 14 enemy combatants neutralized. He paused. All by one shooter. He slid an envelope across the table. Arya picked it up. Inside, cash. A lot of it. That's from the betting pool, Reese said quietly. His voice lacked its usual edge. Turns out, I lost. A few murmurs of agreement around the table. Brennan stood. There's also this. He handed her a second envelope. Inside, a letter. Official. Stamped. An invitation. Advanced tactical training. Instructor position. They want you to teach what you did out there. Brennan's voice was steady. You've earned it. Arya stared at the letter for a long moment. Then she looked up. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. I didn't do it to prove a point. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because 30 people needed to come home. She set the letter down. And they did. Silence. Then, slowly, one by one, the men in the room stood, not at attention, just respect. Reese stepped forward. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were clear. My younger brother was one of the contractors. His voice cracked slightly. He's got a wife. 2 kids. He stopped, swallowed hard. You saved him, so thank you. Arya nodded once. He's a lucky man. No. Reese shook his head. We're the lucky ones, because you didn't quit when we doubted you. Arya didn't respond. She just picked up the letter, folded it, and walked out. Later, she sat alone by a quiet river. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. The current moved slowly, steadily, unstoppable. She watched it in silence. Somewhere out there, 30 people were hugging their families. 30 people were alive because no one saw her coming, because she didn't fight the current. She became it. And as the last light faded from the sky, Arya Vance, ghost, sniper, soldier, allowed herself the smallest of smiles. True power isn't loud. It's the quiet force that strikes when no one believes it can. The smile faded as headlights cut through the dusk. Arya turned, still sitting on the riverbank, as a black SUV rolled to a stop on the gravel road behind her. The engine idled for a moment before cutting off. A door opened. Boots on gravel. She didn't stand. Sergeant Vance! The voice was unfamiliar, clipped, East Coast accent, authority baked into every syllable. Arya glanced over her shoulder. A man in civilian clothes, dark suit, no tie, sunglasses despite the fading light. Behind him, 2 more, same uniform of anonymity. Can I help you? She asked. The man walked closer, stopping a few feet away. He didn't sit, didn't crouch to her level, just stood there, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the dying sun. My name's Carver. I work for an organization that doesn't have a name you'd recognize. He paused. We've been watching you. Arya's expression didn't change. Congratulations. The Canal Op, 30 hostages, 14 kills, 4 hours submerged in near freezing water. Carver's tone was conversational, almost casual. That's not standard Army doctrine. That's not even standard special operations. That's something else. That's doing my job. Your job. Carver pulled a hand from his pocket, holding a thin manila folder. He didn't open it, just held it. Staff Sergeant Arya Vance, 28 years old, orphaned at 6. Foster system until 18, enlisted at 19. Sniper qualification at 22. Perfect scores across the board. 0 disciplinary issues. 0 failures. He tilted his head. Also 0 close relationships. 0 social media presence. 0 digital footprint outside official military records. Arya stood slowly, turning to face him fully. If you're trying to recruit me, you're doing a terrible job. I'm not recruiting you. Carver finally opened the folder, glancing at something inside. I'm informing you, because in 72 hours you're going to receive orders. Transfer. Immediate. Non-negotiable. To where? Classified. For what purpose? Classified. Arya's jaw tightened. I'm not interested. Carver smiled, thin, humorless. It's not optional. The paperwork's already filed. Your CO's already been briefed. You can report willingly or you can report in handcuffs. Either way, you're coming." The two men behind him shifted slightly, hands drifting toward their jackets. Arya didn't move. Her voice dropped, cold and flat. "You want to try that? Here? Now?" Carver's smile faded. He studied her for a long moment, then closed the folder with a soft snap. "You've got 72 hours to get your affairs in order. After that, a car will pick you up." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. That river stunt you pulled, the one nobody's supposed to know about? We know. We know everything. So if you're thinking about running," he glanced back, "don't." Then he was gone. The SUV's engine roared to life. Gravel crunched. Gravel. Taillights disappeared into the twilight. Arya stood alone by the river, her fists clenched. For the first time in years, she felt something close to fear. 72 hours later, the car arrived. Not an SUV this time. A plain sedan, unmarked. The driver didn't speak. Just opened the rear door and waited. Arya climbed in with a single duffel bag. Everything she owned fit inside it. The drive took 6 hours. Highways, back roads, checkpoints with armed guards who waved them through without question. No signs, no landmarks, just endless desert and the hum of tires on asphalt. Finally, they turned onto a dirt road that led to nowhere, or so it seemed. The facility appeared out of the heat haze like a mirage. Concrete walls, razor wire, guard towers, a single gate with a biometric scanner. The sign beside it read, "Restricted Area, Authorized Personnel Only, no base name, no unit designation, nothing." Arya stepped out of the car into furnace heat. The air shimmered. In the distance, mountains rippled like water. A woman in fatigues approached. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, no rank insignia. "Vance?" "Yeah." "Follow me." They walked through the gate, past a series of low buildings that looked like they'd been dropped from orbit. Everything was beige, utilitarian, designed to disappear. Inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees, air conditioning hummed, fluorescent lights buzzed. The woman led Arya down a corridor lined with unmarked doors. At the end, she stopped, swiped a keycard, and pushed open a heavy steel door. "Wait here." The door closed behind Arya with a pneumatic hiss. She was in a small room, table, 2 chairs, no windows. A camera in the corner, red light blinking. She sat and waited. 20 minutes passed. Then the door opened. Carver stepped inside, still in his suit, still wearing those damn sunglasses indoors. "Sergeant Vance, glad you could make it." "Didn't have much choice." "No." He sat across from her, folding his hands on the table. "You didn't." Silence. Arya leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "So what is this? Black Site? CIA? JSOC? Or something even the acronyms don't know about?" "All of the above." "None of the above." Carver smiled faintly. "Let's just say we operate in the spaces between official channels. When traditional assets fail, we step in. When missions are too sensitive for public record, we handle them. And when someone demonstrates unique capabilities," he gestured toward her, "we take notice. And you think I'm unique. I know you are." Carver pulled a tablet from his jacket, sliding it across the table. "Al-Hasaka Province, the bomb maker you eliminated. The official report says you made the shot from 380 meters after a standard approach." Arya said nothing. "But that's not what happened." Carver tapped the screen. A satellite image appeared. Thermal overlay. Timeline stamps. "You entered the water at 1947 hours. Didn't surface until 2343. 4 hours. Core temperature dropped to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. By all medical standards, you should have been unconscious. But you took the shot anyway. Clean kill. Then disappeared before the follow-up team arrived." Arya's expression remained neutral. "Someone's been busy." "We've been busy for a long time." Carver leaned forward. "Here's what I want to know. How?" "How what?" "How does a 28-year-old staff sergeant with no prior special operations experience develop the skills to do what you do? How do you survive conditions that would kill trained SEALs? How do you make shots that veteran snipers wouldn't attempt?" He paused. "And why does someone with your abilities stay buried in a conventional army unit instead of applying for Delta or DevGru?" Arya met his gaze. "Maybe I like where I am. Or maybe you're hiding. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Carver pulled the tablet back, swiping to a new screen. Let's talk about your past. Orphaned at 6, parents died in a car accident. Or so the report says. That's what happened. Is it? He turned the tablet toward her again. A photograph. Grainy, old. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, standing beside a man and a woman. The girl's face was partially obscured, but the eyes were unmistakable. Arya's eyes. This photo was taken 3 months before your parents allegedly died. But here's the interesting part. Carver zoomed in on the background. A building, nondescript, except for the small sign above the door, Cyrillic lettering. Arya's pulse quickened, but her face remained stone. That's a research facility, Carver continued. Eastern Europe. Specializes in cognitive enhancement, performance optimization, experimental training protocols. He looked up. Want to tell me what your parents were doing there? I was 6. I don't remember. You remember everything, Vance. That's part of the problem. Carver closed the tablet. You've got skills that don't match your training record, abilities that don't fit the timeline, and a past that's been scrubbed so clean it practically glows in the dark. So I'll ask again, how? Arya stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. If you brought me here to play detective, you're wasting both our time. Sit down. No. Carver's expression hardened. Sit down. For a moment, neither moved. Then Arya sat, but her eyes didn't leave his. Carver exhaled slowly, adjusting his sunglasses. Look, I don't care what happened when you were 6. I don't care what secrets are buried in your file. What I care about is capability, and you've got it in spades. That canal op? That wasn't luck. That wasn't standard training. That was something else. Something we need. For what? For the missions no one else can handle. He leaned back. We've got a problem. High-value targets in denied areas. Places where traditional military action would spark international incidents. Hostage situations where standard rescue protocols fail. Enemies who know our playbook because we taught it to them. He paused. We need someone who doesn't play by the playbook. Someone who disappears. Someone who strikes from angles they'll never see coming. You've got plenty of operators who can do that. Not like you. Carver's voice dropped. You stayed submerged for 4 hours in water that should have killed you. You made 14 kills in under 3 minutes. You extracted 30 hostages with 0 friendly casualties, and you did it alone. He tilted his head. That's not training. That's not talent. That's something built into your DNA. Arya's fists clenched beneath the table. What do you want from me? I want you to do what you do best. Disappear. Strike. Win. He slid a new folder across the table. We've got a situation. Libya. A warlord named Hassan Koval, former KGB, runs a smuggling network that moves everything from weapons to people. Intel says he's got 3 American journalists locked in a compound outside Benghazi. Standard rescue ops won't work. He's got anti-air, heavy fortifications, and a network of informants that'll light us up the moment we get close. Arya opened the folder. Satellite images. Guard rotations. Compound layout. And there, threading through the terrain, a river. Carver watched her. Sound familiar? Arya closed the folder. You want me to do another canal approach. I want you to do whatever it takes. You've got 48 hours to plan, 72 to execute. After that, those journalists are dead. And if I refuse? Carver smiled, cold, predatory. You won't. Why not? Because despite everything, despite the walls you've built, the distance you keep, the past you're running from, you're not the kind of person who lets people die when you can save them. He stood. That's your weakness, Vance, and it's also why you're perfect for this job. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. You've got 2 hours to settle in. Then we start mission planning. Welcome to the program. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. Arya sat alone in the silence, staring at the folder. Her hands were shaking. The barracks were Spartan. 4 walls, a cot, a locker. A single window that looked out onto a training yard where shadows moved in the pre-dawn darkness. Arya lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. Instead, fragments of memory surfaced. Unbidden. Unwanted. A small room, cold. White walls. Machines beeping softly. A man's voice, calm and clinical. Again. Slower this time. Control your breathing. Her own voice. Smaller, younger, frightened. It hurts. Pain is data. Process it. Move past it. Cold water closing over her head. Darkness. Panic clawing at her chest. And then calm. Stillness. Her heartbeat slowing, slowing until the world faded to black. Arya sat up sharply, sweat beading on her forehead. She pressed her palms against her eyes, willing the memories back into the dark where they belonged. It didn't work. A knock at the door. She stood, crossing the room in 2 strides, opened it. A man stood in the hallway, early 40s, graying hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He wore fatigues with no rank, no name tape, just a small patch on his shoulder, a stylized dagger over a black background. Vance? Yeah. Sergeant Major Cole. I run tactical operations here. He extended a hand. Welcome to the program. Arya shook it. His grip was firm, calloused. I'm guessing Carver already gave you the recruitment speech, Cole said. Something like that. Good. Then you know what we do here. No official record, no public acknowledgement. We're the ghosts that keep the wolves at bay. He gestured down the hallway. Come on. I'll show you around. They walked through the facility in silence. Cole pointed out key areas, armory, operations center, medical bay, training grounds. Everything was state-of-the-art. Everything was designed for one purpose: lethality. How many people work here? Arya asked. Classified. But let's just say we're selective. Cole glanced at her. You're the first Army recruit we've pulled in 6 months. Most of our operators come from Tier 1 units, Delta, DevGru, Special Activities Division. The fact that you're here at all says something. That I don't have a choice? Cole smiled faintly. That you've got skills we can't ignore. They stopped in front of a heavy steel door. Cole swiped his keycard, and it slid open with a hiss. Inside was a shooting range unlike any Arya had seen, not just targets, simulations, moving platforms, environmental controls, wind generators, lighting systems that could replicate dawn, dusk, moonlight, or total darkness. This is where we test limits, Cole said. We don't train for scenarios. We train for chaos. For the worst conditions, the worst odds, the worst timing. He walked to a control panel, tapping a few commands. Instantly, the range transformed. Lights dimmed, wind picked up, temperature dropped. Cole gestured toward the firing line. Show me what you've got. Arya raised an eyebrow. Now? Now. She moved to the weapons rack, selecting a rifle, standard M4, nothing fancy. Checked the chamber, loaded a magazine. Cole tapped the panel again. Downrange, targets appeared. Pop-ups, movers, static silhouettes at varying distances. 100 meters, 300, 500. Engage at will. Arya settled into position, controlled her breathing, let the world narrow to sight, picture and trigger press. The first shot cracked through the silence. Target down, center mass. She shifted. Another target. Another shot. Down. Cole adjusted the controls. The wind picked up, gusting now, erratic. Lights flickered. Rain simulation kicked in, water streaming across her face. Arya didn't flinch. She adjusted for wind, calculated, fired, target down. Again. And again. By the time she finished, every target was neutralized. Perfect center mass, 0 misses. Cole studied the results on his tablet, then looked up at her. Thowlet, then looked. His expression was unreadable. How long have you been able to do that? Arya lowered the rifle. Do what? Adapt that fast. Calculate wind, distance, elevation on the fly, without a spotter, without instrumentation, without hesitation. He gestured at the screen. Those conditions were changing every 3 seconds. No one shoots clean in that environment, not without extensive training in this exact setup. Maybe I got lucky. Luck doesn't exist in our world, Vance. Skill does, preparation does, and something else. He paused. Something you're not telling me. Arya set the rifle down carefully. I'm good at my job. That's all there is. Is it? Cole stepped closer. Because Carver thinks there's more. He thinks you've got something buried in your past, something that makes you different. And if he's right, we need to know. Not because we want to exploit it, but because we need to understand your limits, your breaking point, the things that might get you killed in the field. Arya met his gaze. I don't have a breaking point. Everyone does. Not me. Cole studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, we'll see. He turned toward the door. Mission brief in 1 hour. Ops center. Don't be late. He left. Arya stood alone in the range, the simulated rain still falling around her. She didn't feel victorious. She felt exposed. The operations center was crowded. A dozen operators, some in fatigues, others in civilian clothes, sat around a large table covered with maps, satellite imagery, and tactical overlays. Screens lined the walls, displaying real-time feeds from God knows where. Arya entered quietly, taking a seat at the back. Carver stood at the head of the table, a laser pointer in hand. Cole sat beside him, arms crossed. All right, listen up. Carver's voice cut through the low murmur of conversation. We've got 48 hours to plan and 72 to execute. Target, Hassan Koval, former KGB operative turned warlord, currently operating out of a fortified compound 20 clicks outside Benghazi. He clicked a button. The main screen shifted to an aerial view of the compound. 3 buildings, high walls, guard towers, heavy fortifications. Koval's got 3 American journalists, kidnapped 6 days ago while covering refugee movements. Intel suggests he's planning to sell them to an extremist group unless ransoms are paid. State Department won't negotiate. Local government won't intervene. That leaves us. Someone at the table spoke up, a man with a scarred jaw and cold eyes. What's the entry plan? Helo insertion? Negative. Koval's got Igla surface-to-air missiles, Russian-made, proven track record of downing helicopters. Air approach is suicide. Ground assault? Another operator asked. Also problematic. Compounds surrounded by open desert. No cover. Thermal sensors. Motion detectors. We'd be spotted before we got within half a click. Murmurs around the table. Frustration. Everyone saw the same problem. So what's the play? Scarred Jaw asked. Carver's eyes flicked to Arya. We're going with an asymmetric approach. Single operator, water insertion. The room went silent. Someone laughed, short, disbelieving. Through what water? It's a desert. Carver zoomed in on the map. A thin blue line snaked through the terrain, passing within 600 meters of the compound. Irrigation canal. Runs from a reservoir 15 clicks north, flows south past the compound. It's minimal coverage, but it's something. Scarred Jaw shook his head. 600 meters is extreme range. Wind's unpredictable in that region, and you're talking about a solo op with zero backup. Correct? That's insane. It's necessary. Carver looked around the table. Standard tactics won't work here. We need someone who can do what others can't. Someone who's already proven they can operate in extreme conditions. He gestured toward Arya. Sergeant Vance will handle primary insertion and target elimination. Once the compound's destabilized, QRF moves in for hostage extraction. All eyes turned to her. Arya didn't react, just sat there, calm, expressionless. Scarred Jaw leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. No offense, Sergeant, but this isn't some training exercise. Koval's not a sitting duck. He's got trained operators, military-grade equipment, and years of experience. You really think you can take him out from 600 meters after floating in a canal for hours? Arya's voice was quiet. Yes. Based on what? Based on the fact that I've done it before. Where? When? Carver cut in. That's classified. Scarred Jaw's jaw tightened. With all due respect, sir, we're about to risk 3 American lives on one shooter's say-so. I think we deserve more than classified. What you deserve, Carver said coldly, is to follow orders. Vance has been vetted. Her record speaks for itself. And unless you've got a better plan that doesn't involve losing more operators, I suggest you shut up and listen. Scarred Jaw's eyes flashed, but he said nothing. Carver continued. Mission timeline? Vance inserts at 0200 hours. Canal approach to firing position. Target elimination at 0600. QRF deploys immediately after. Extraction via ground convoy. Questions? A woman near the front raised her hand, short hair, sharp features, tactical gear. What if Vance is compromised before reaching position? Then the mission's scrubbed and we extract. And if she's compromised during the shot? Then she's on her own. The woman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, or maybe pity. Arya spoke up. I won't be compromised. The woman turned to her. You sound confident. I am. Confidence gets people killed. So does hesitation. The woman studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. Carver checked his watch. We've got 36 hours to finalize gear, run simulations, and brief the QRF. Vance, you're with Cole. He'll walk you through equipment selection and environmental prep. Everyone else, get familiar with the compound layout. I want contingencies for every scenario. Dismissed. The room emptied quickly. Arya stood, but before she could leave, Scarred Jaw stepped into her path. Up close, he was bigger than she'd thought. 6'3", maybe 6'4". Broad shoulders, eyes like flint. Word of advice, Sergeant. His voice was low, meant for her ears only. I don't know what you did to impress Carver, and I don't care. But out there, he gestured vaguely toward the desert beyond the walls. There's no room for error. You miss, those hostages die. You get spotted, you die. And if your op goes sideways, the rest of us are the ones who have to clean up the mess. He leaned in slightly. So do us all a favor. If you're not 100% sure you can pull this off, say so now, before it's too late. Arya held his gaze. I'm sure. Are you? Or are you just too proud to admit you're in over your head? Neither. He studied her, looking for cracks, for doubt, for anything that would confirm his suspicions. He found nothing. Finally, he stepped aside. Good luck, Sergeant. You're going to need it. He walked away. Arya stood alone in the empty operations center, surrounded by maps and screens and the weight of expectations she didn't ask for. But she didn't feel afraid. She felt something else, something cold, something sharp, something that had been sleeping for a long time. And now it was waking up. That night, Arya returned to her barracks. She sat on the edge of the cot, the folder from Carver spread open beside her. Satellite images, guard rotations, terrain maps, and that thin blue line, the canal. She traced it with her finger, calculating distances, angles, probabilities. 600 meters. Extreme range. Wind variables. Heat distortion. Most snipers wouldn't even attempt it. But she wasn't most snipers. Her comm device buzzed, a small earpiece issued by Cole. Vance, this is Overwatch. You still awake? She tapped it. Yeah. Good. Meet me at the range in 10. We need to run environmental sims. Copy. She stood, grabbed her gear, and headed out into the night. The desert air was cool now, almost cold. Stars burned overhead, bright, infinite, indifferent. Somewhere out there, 3 people were waiting to die, and she was the only thing standing between them and that fate. No pressure. She walked faster. The range was dark except for a single overhead light that cast harsh shadows across the concrete floor. Cole stood at the control panel, fingers dancing over the touchscreen. Around Arya, the environment shifted. Wind generators spun to life, temperature dropped, moisture levels spiked to simulate humidity. We're replicating Benghazi conditions, Cole said without looking up. Daytime temps hit 105. Nighttime drops to 65. Wind patterns are erratic, gusts up to 15 knots from the northwest. Canal water temp is approximately 58 degrees Fahrenheit. He glanced at her. You'll be in that water for 3 to 4 hours minimum, maybe longer if insertion timing gets pushed. Arya checked her rifle. A custom build, .338 Lapua Magnum, suppressor attached. I've done colder. I'm sure you have. Cole tapped another command. Downrange, targets appeared at varying distances. But cold isn't the only variable. Hassan Koval isn't some third-rate militia commander. He's former KGB, Spetsnaz trained. He knows counter-surveillance, knows how snipers think, knows how to harden a target. He looked at her directly now. Which means if you miss your first shot, you won't get a second. I won't miss. Prove it. The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the range. For 3 seconds, Arya saw nothing. Then emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red-tinted, barely enough to make out shapes. Night vision's compromised, Cole's voice came through her earpiece. Battery failure, equipment malfunction. Doesn't matter why. You've got ambient light only. Winds gusting at 12 knots. Temperature just dropped another 10 degrees. Target distance, 620 meters. Engage. Arya's eyes adjusted. She scanned downrange, found the target silhouette. Barely visible, a darker shadow against dark background. She settled into position. Breathing slowed. Pulse dropped. Wind brushed her cheek. Left to right. Inconsistent. She calculated. Adjusted. The world narrowed to a single point. She fired. The suppressor coughed. Downrange, the target jerked. Center mass. Again, Cole said. Different target. 580 meters. Wind shift. Now coming from the east. You've got 30 seconds before guard rotation spots your muzzle flash. Another target appeared. Arya didn't hesitate. Bolt back. New round chambered. Sight picture acquired. Fire. Target down. Faster, Cole barked. Koval's moving toward the hostages. You've got 15 seconds before he's behind cover. 600 meters. Crosswind at 10 knots. Target shifted. Moving now. Side to side. Arya tracked it. Led the movement. Calculated intercept point. Fire. The target stopped mid-stride. Perfect hit. The lights came back on, harsh and sudden. Arya blinked against the glare, lowering her rifle. Cole walked down range, checking each target with a laser rangefinder. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. 3 shots, 3 kills, 0 misses. He crossed his arms. Under conditions that would make most snipers pack it in and wait for better circumstances. Arya said nothing. You want to tell me how you do that? Practice. Bullshit! Cole's voice wasn't angry, just direct. I've trained snipers for 15 years, seen the best of the best. SEAL Team 6, Delta Marksman, CIA paramilitary, and none of them, none, shoot as clean as you do under degraded conditions. He paused. So I'll ask again. How? Arya met his eyes. I don't know. You don't know. No. You just naturally compensate for wind, distance, movement, lighting variables, and physiological stress without conscious thought? Something like that. Cole studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. Either you're the luckiest person alive, or there's something in your wiring that's different from the rest of us. He turned back toward the control panel. Either way, it's going to keep you alive out there. Let's hope it's enough. The mission brief came at 0400 hours. Arya sat in the operations center surrounded by faces she barely knew. The QRF team, 6 operators, all Tier 1 veterans. Scarred Jaw was there, whose real name turned out to be Hendrix. The woman from before, Specialist Reyes. Others whose names she hadn't learned yet. Carver stood at the head of the table, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Intel update, he began without preamble. Cavals moved the journalist to the basement of the primary structure. Reinforced door. 2 guards posted outside. He's accelerating the timeline, planning to film an execution in 18 hours instead of 72. Hendricks swore under his breath. Which means, we move tonight, Carver continued. Vance inserts at 2200 hours, 4-hour canal approach, target elimination at 0200. QRF deploys immediately after first shot. Questions? Reyes raised a hand. What's our backup plan if Vance doesn't neutralize Koval? There isn't one. The room went silent. You're telling me we're betting everything on one shooter? Hendrix's voice was tight. I'm telling you we're out of options. Carver's tone left no room for argument. Standard assault gets those hostages killed. Air support gets our birds shot down. This is the only play we have. Then we better hope she's as good as you say she is. All eyes turned to Arya. She sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table. I am. Hendricks' jaw worked. No offense, Sergeant, but I've seen a lot of confident operators end up in body bags. Then you'll see one more who doesn't. Something flickered across Hendricks' face, surprise, maybe respect. He nodded slowly. All right, let's do this. Carver checked his watch. Wheels up in 16 hours. Use the time to prep gear, run final checks, and get some rest. Dismissed. The room cleared quickly. Arya stood, but Carver's voice stopped her. Vance, a word. She turned. He gestured toward a side office, small, windowless, soundproofed. They stepped inside. The door closed with a heavy click. Carver leaned against the desk, arms crossed. For a moment, he just looked at her. You've got ghosts, he said finally. Arya didn't respond. Everyone does. Past trauma, unresolved questions, things they'd rather forget. He paused. But yours are different, deeper, more deliberate. Is there a point to this? The point is that I need to know you're not going to freeze up out there. I need to know that whatever's buried in your past isn't going to surface at the worst possible moment and get people killed. Arya's voice was flat. It won't. How can you be sure? Because I've learned to control it. Control what? Silence. Carver pushed off the desk, stepping closer. That photo I showed you. The research facility. Your parents. His voice dropped. We did some digging. Turns out that facility specialized in something called accelerated cognitive development. Experimental protocols designed to enhance learning speed, memory retention, physical performance. He paused. Human trials. Mostly children. Arya's fists clenched. Your parents weren't just visiting that facility, Carver continued. They worked there. Researchers. Specialists in neuroplasticity and performance optimization. He pulled out a thin file, setting it on the desk. And according to classified records we acquired, you were one of their subjects. The room felt smaller. From age 4 to 6, Carver said quietly, you underwent a series of experimental treatments, sensory deprivation, stress inoculation, advanced physical conditioning, all designed to push human limits. He opened the file. Inside, medical records, test results, data charts showing accelerated development curves that weren't humanly possible. Arya stared at the pages without seeing them. The program was shut down after your parents died, Carver said. Officially labeled a failure. All records sealed. Subjects disappeared into foster systems or adopted out under new identities. He looked at her. But the effects didn't disappear, did they? Arya's voice was barely a whisper. I don't remember most of it. Your body does. Your mind does. That's why you can do things others can't. Why you survive conditions that should kill you. Why you process information faster, adapt quicker, endure longer. He paused. You were built for this, Vance, whether you wanted to be or not. Rage flared hot in her chest, white hot, sharp-edged. I wasn't built. I was tortured, experimented on, used. I know. Do you? Do you have any idea what it's like to wake up with memories you can't trust? To feel like your own body isn't entirely yours? Her voice cracked slightly. They took a child and turned her into this. And now you're going to use it to save lives. Arya's eyes snapped to his. Don't. Don't what? Don't try to make this noble. Don't pretend like I have a choice. Carver's expression softened, just slightly. You always have a choice, Vance. You can walk away right now, say no, refuse the mission. And let those journalists die? That's not on you, isn't it? Arya's voice was cold now. You said it yourself. I'm the only one who can pull this off, which means if I walk away, they're dead, and I have to live with that. She shook her head. So no, I don't have a choice. I never did. Carver was quiet for a moment, then he closed the file. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what happened to you. For what you've had to become. He met her eyes. But I'm not sorry you're here, because those 3 people in that basement, they need someone exactly like you, someone who's been broken and rebuilt, someone who knows how to survive the impossible. Arya turned toward the door. One more thing, Carver said. She stopped. That facility, the one your parents worked at. He hesitated. It wasn't the only one. There were others, different programs, different subjects. Some of them are still out there. Arya's pulse quickened. Why are you telling me this? Because one of them is Hassan Koval. The world tilted. He went through a similar program, Soviet-run. Different protocols, same goal. Enhanced operatives. Carver's voice was grim. Which means when you go up against him, you're not just facing a well-trained soldier. You're facing someone who was engineered the same way you were. Arya's hand tightened on the door handle. Then I'll beat him the same way I beat everything else. How? She looked back at him. By refusing to break. Then she left. The armory was quiet. Arya moved through it methodically, selecting gear with practiced efficiency. Wetsuit, rebreather rig, thermal layers, dive knife, sidearm, and the rifle. Always the rifle. She was checking the scope alignment when footsteps approached. Reyes. The woman leaned against the doorframe, watching. Heard you gave Carver an earful. Arya didn't look up. News travels fast. Always does in a place like this. Reyes stepped inside. For what it's worth, I think he's right. About what? About you being the right person for this. Reyes picked up a magazine, turning it over in her hands. I've been doing this job for 8 years, seen a lot of operators come and go. Most of them are good. Some are great. But every once in a while, you meet someone who's just different. Someone who operates on a level the rest of us can't reach. She set the magazine down. You're one of those. Arya finally looked up. You don't know me. I know enough. I watched the range footage, saw your test scores, read your after-action reports from the canal op. Reyes smiled faintly. You're either superhuman or too stubborn to know when you should quit. Maybe both. Yeah. Reyes's smile faded. Just be careful out there. Koval's not someone to underestimate. He's survived this long because he's paranoid, ruthless, and smart. And if Carver's right about his background, she trailed off. I'll be fine. Will you? Reyes's eyes searched hers. Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone carrying a mountain on their shoulders. And I've seen what happens when that weight gets too heavy. Arya turned back to her gear. I'm not going to break. Everyone breaks eventually. Not me. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. All right. Good luck, Vance. She left. Arya stood alone again, surrounded by instruments of war. Her hands were steady. But inside, something was shifting, something old and buried, something she'd spent years keeping locked away. And now it was clawing its way to the surface. 2,200 hours. The helicopter cut through the night sky like a blade, rotors thumping in steady rhythm. Arya sat in the cargo bay, surrounded by the QRF team. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, expectant. Below, the desert stretched endlessly. Black sand, darker shadows, no light except the stars. The pilot's voice crackled through the comms. 2 minutes to drop zone. Arya stood, checking her gear one final time. Wetsuit sealed, rebreather functional, rifle secured. Hendricks caught her eye. He didn't say anything, just nodded. She nodded back. The helicopter descended, hovering 20 feet above the canal. The side door slid open. Wind roared in, cold and violent. 30 seconds! Arya moved to the edge, staring down at the black water below. 10 seconds! She took a breath, held it, and jumped. The impact was brutal. Cold slammed into her like a wall, driving the air from her lungs. For half a second, panic clawed at her, primal, instinctive. Then training took over. She surfaced just long enough to orient herself, then sank beneath the water, letting the current take her. The world went silent. Above, the helicopter's rotors faded into nothing. The QRF team was gone. The base was gone. There was only water, darkness, and the mission. Arya drifted, her body horizontal, her movements minimal. The rebreather fed her oxygen in steady, measured breaths. Her pulse slowed. Core temperature began to drop. She'd done this before, but this time felt different. This time, the ghosts were closer. Cold water, white room, machines beeping. Control your breathing, slow your heart. Let the cold become part of you. Her father's voice, clinical, detached. Pain is temporary, adaptation is permanent. She pushed the memory away, focused on the present. The current carried her south. Time became meaningless. Minutes, hours. All the same. Finally, the compound appeared in the distance, a dark shape against a darker sky. Lights glowed along the perimeter. Guard towers stood silent. Arya drifted closer. 450 meters. She anchored herself against the canal bank, letting the cold seep deeper into her bones. Through her scope, the world sharpened. Guard tower. 2 hostiles. A K-47's alert, courtyard. 3 more, patrolling in lazy patterns. And there, second floor window. Hassan Koval. He stood with his back to the glass, gesturing at someone out of view. Tall, broad-shouldered, confident. Arya's finger moved to the trigger, but something stopped her. A feeling, subtle, wrong. She scanned the compound again, slower this time, and then she saw it. A figure on the roof. Prone position, long rifle, a counter-sniper. Her pulse spiked. Koval knew. Somehow, he knew a sniper would come, and he'd prepared. The counter-sniper's scope swept the perimeter, slow, methodical, professional. If Arya took the shot now, he'd triangulate her position in seconds, and she'd be dead before her second shot. Her mind raced. Options. Abort. Wait. Engage the counter-sniper first. But engaging the counter-sniper would alert the compound, and the hostages would die. She had one shot, one chance, and it had to be perfect. Her breath slowed, pulse dropped, the world narrowed. She calculated angles, timing, wind. Koval stepped into the window frame, turning slightly. The counter-sniper's scope swept past her position, missing her by inches. Arya exhaled, held, and fired. The bullet cut through 450 meters of night air in less than a second. Koval's head snapped back. His body dropped. Before the counter-sniper could react, Arya's bolt was already moving. New round chambered. Sight picture acquired. Fire. The counter-sniper jerked once, then went still. Chaos erupted. Shouts, alarms, gunfire. But it was too late. Arya was already moving, shifting position, letting the current carry her downstream. Her second magazine was loaded. Her targets acquired. Guard tower. Left hostile. Fire. Down. Right hostile. Fire. Down. Courtyard. 4 hostiles running toward the basement entrance. Fire, 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 fire! Bodies dropped in rapid succession. Through her earpiece, Hendricks' voice crackled. Lima 7, QRF is inbound. 60 seconds. Arya didn't respond. She was locked in now. Pure focus. Pure execution. Another guard appeared, radio in hand, calling for reinforcements. Fire. Silence. The helicopters roared overhead, fast ropes deploying, operators sliding down like angels of death. Flashbangs detonated, smoke billowed. The assault was clean, brutal, overwhelming. Arya stayed in the water, providing overwatch. Any hostile that appeared in her scope died instantly. 3 minutes later, Hendricks' voice came through again. Hostages secure. All targets down. We're extracting. Arya lowered her rifle. It was over. She hauled herself out of the canal, her body shaking violently. Core temperature had dropped to dangerous levels. Her fingers were numb, vision tunneling, but she stayed on her feet. Medics rushed toward her, wrapping her in thermal blankets. Jesus, her temp's at 93. Get her on the bird, now! Strong hands lifted her, carried her. The world blurred. She saw Hendricks, his face grim but relieved. Reyes, nodding with something like respect. Carver, watching from a distance, his expression unreadable. And then darkness. She woke in a medical bay. White walls, beeping machines, IV in her arm. For a moment, the memories flooded back. Sharp, vivid, overwhelming. White room, cold water, her father's voice. She gasped, sitting up sharply. Easy, Cole's voice. He sat in a chair beside the bed, arms crossed. You're safe. Mission successful. Hostages are on their way home. Arya's breathing slowed. Koval? Dead, along with 17 of his men. 0 friendly casualties. Cole leaned forward. You know, when Carver first pitched this op, I thought he was insane. 1 shooter, extreme conditions, impossible odds. He paused. I was wrong. Arya said nothing. That counter-sniper, Cole continued. You spotted him before you took the shot. Adjusted your plan on the fly. Made 2 kills in under 3 seconds. He shook his head. That's not training. That's something else. It's survival. Is it? Cole's eyes were sharp. Or is it something you were programmed to do before you even knew what programming meant? Arya's jaw tightened. Does it matter? I don't know. Does it? Silence. Cole stood. Get some rest. Carver wants to debrief you in 6 hours. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Vance, that you saved 3 lives tonight. Whatever it cost you, whatever it took, it was worth it. Then he was gone. Arya lay back against the pillow, staring at the ceiling. Her hands were still shaking, not from the cold, from something deeper. Because now she knew the truth. She wasn't just good at this, she was made for it, and that terrified her more than any mission ever could. She didn't sleep. Instead, Arya lay in the medical bay staring at the IV drip, watching clear fluid slide down the tube and into her arm. Each drop was perfectly timed, mechanical, predictable, unlike her thoughts. The door opened quietly. Footsteps approached, measured, deliberate. Carver. He pulled up the chair Cole had occupied, sitting without asking permission. For a long moment, he just watched her. "How are you feeling?" he finally asked. "Fine." "Liar." Arya's eyes flicked to him. "What do you want?" "The truth." Carver leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "About what happened out there. About that counter-sniper. I spotted him, adjusted, made the shot. In under 3 seconds, in conditions that would overwhelm most operators, while your core temperature was dropping into hypothermic ranges." He paused. "That's not adjustment, Vance. That's something else." "Like what?" "Like the kind of processing speed that shouldn't be humanly possible." Carver pulled out a tablet, swiping to a video feed. "This is thermal footage from the Overwatch drone. Watch." He turned the screen toward her. The video showed the compound from above, heat signatures glowing white against black background. Arya's position in the canal was barely visible, a faint cool spot against the water. Then the shot. Caval's heat signature flared briefly before collapsing. Less than 2 seconds later, the counter-sniper dropped. Carver froze the frame. From first trigger pull to second kill, 1.8 seconds. In that time, you cycled the bolt, acquired a new target 200 meters from the first, calculated wind and elevation for a completely different angle, and made a headshot. He looked at her. The average trained sniper needs 4 to 6 seconds for that sequence. Elite operators can do it in 3. You did it in under 2. Arya said nothing. "That's not training," Carver continued. "That's not experience. That's augmented processing. Faster neural pathways, enhanced pattern recognition. Exactly the kind of cognitive acceleration that facility was trying to create." "So what?" Arya's voice was flat. "You got what you wanted. Mission successful. 3 hostages home. What does it matter how I did it?" "It matters because we need to understand your limits, your capabilities, what you can and can't do." He set the tablet down. "And because you're not the only one." Arya's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "Koval wasn't the last subject from those programs. There are others, scattered across the world, some working for governments, others gone rogue, and all of them have abilities like yours." He paused. "Some even more advanced." "How many?" "We don't know. Records were destroyed, facilities shut down, but intelligence suggests at least a dozen survived to adulthood." Carver's expression was grim. "And if even half of them are hostile, we've got a serious problem." Arya sat up slowly, ignoring the pull of the IV. "You want me to hunt them?" "I want you to help us identify them, understand them, and if necessary, yes, neutralize them." "Why me?" "Because you're one of them. You understand how they think, how they operate, what drives them." He met her eyes. "And because you've proven you can beat them." Arya's jaw tightened. "I'm not a weapon you can point at whoever you want." "No, you're a soldier, and soldiers follow orders." "I didn't sign up for this." "Neither did those 3 journalists. Neither did the 30 contractors you saved before. Neither do any of the people who'll die if we don't stop these enhanced operatives before they destabilize entire regions." Carver's voice hardened. "You want to pretend you're just a normal soldier? Fine. But we both know that's a lie. You're different. You've always been different, and the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can decide what to do with it." Silence filled the room. Arya looked away, staring at the blank white wall. "What if I don't want to accept it?" "Then you spend the rest of your life running from what you are. Hiding, pretending." Carver stood. "But the truth doesn't care whether you accept it or not. It just is." He walked to the door, then stopped. "Debrief is in 4 hours. Conference room, full team." He glanced back. "And Vance? You did good out there. Better than good. But this is just the beginning." Then he left. Arya sat alone, the beeping of the medical equipment the only sound. Her hands were steady now, but inside, everything was chaos. 4 hours later, Arya walked into the conference room. The entire QRF team was there. Hendricks, Reyes, Cole, Carver at the head of the table, and 2 new faces, a man and a woman in suits, government types with hard eyes and harder expressions. Everyone turned to look at her. "Sergeant Vance," Carver said. "Take a seat." She sat at the far end of the table, as far from the suits as possible. Carver gestured to the newcomers. This is Director Palmer and Agent Kessler from the Defense Intelligence Agency. They've been following your career with interest. Palmer spoke first, mid-50s, silver hair, voice like gravel. Sergeant, your performance on the Koval operation was exceptional. 17 enemy combatants neutralized. 3 hostages recovered unharmed. 0 friendly casualties. He paused. It's the kind of result we rarely see, even from our most elite units. Thank you, sir. Which raises questions. Kessler leaned forward, younger, sharper, less diplomatic, about how exactly you achieved those results. Arya's expression didn't change. I did my job. Under extreme conditions, with variables that should have made success impossible. Kessler pulled out a file, thick, detailed. We've reviewed the mission data, thermal imaging, ballistic analysis, timeline reconstruction. She opened the file. According to our calculations, the shots you made, particularly the rapid engagement of both primary target and counter-sniper, required cognitive processing speeds approximately 40% faster than normal human capability. The room went quiet. That's impressive, Kessler continued. It's also statistically impossible, unless you've received some form of enhancement. Hendricks shifted in his seat. With respect, ma'am, I've worked with a lot of elite operators. Sometimes people just perform above expectations under pressure. Sometimes, Kessler agreed, but not consistently, not with this level of precision. She looked at Arya. We know about the facility, Sergeant, the research program your parents were involved in, the experimental protocols. Arya's fists clenched under the table. Palmer raised a hand. What Agent Kessler is trying to establish is whether there are any lingering effects from your childhood that might impact your operational reliability. You mean if I'm broken, Arya said flatly. I mean, if there are factors we need to account for in future mission planning. I'm fine. Are you? Kessler's voice was sharp. Because our psychological profile suggests otherwise. Minimal social connections, difficulty maintaining relationships, tendency toward isolation, classic markers of unprocessed trauma. My personal life isn't relevant to mission performance. It is if it compromises your judgment in the field. Arya stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. I've completed every mission assigned to me. 0 failures, 0 compromises. My judgment is fine. Sit down, Sergeant, Palmer said calmly. I'd rather not. That wasn't a request, Carver cut in. Vance, sit. She hesitated, then sat. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Palmer folded his hands on the table. Let me be clear, Sergeant. We're not questioning your abilities. We're trying to understand them so we can utilize them effectively. The United States has enemies with capabilities we're only beginning to comprehend. Enhanced operatives, augmented soldiers, people who've been trained or modified to operate beyond normal human limits. He paused. If you're one of those people, we need to know, because that makes you an asset, a valuable one. I'm not an asset. I'm a soldier. You're both, Kessler said, whether you like it or not. Reyes spoke up from across the table. Can I say something? Palmer nodded. I was on that QRF team. I saw what Sergeant Vance accomplished out there. And yeah, it was impressive. Maybe even impossible by normal standards. But you know what else I saw? Reyes looked at Arya. I saw someone who was willing to freeze half to death in a canal for 4 hours to save 3 people she'd never met. Someone who took the hardest job because no one else could do it. That's not an asset. That's a hero. Hendricks nodded. Agreed. I've worked with a lot of operators who talk a big game. Vance just does the work, and she does it better than anyone I've seen. Palmer studied them both. Your loyalty to your teammate is admirable, but sentiment doesn't change the facts. Then what facts do you want? Arya's voice was cold. You want me to admit I'm different? Fine. I'm different. You want me to confirm that I have abilities most people don't? Confirmed. You want to know if I'll use those abilities to complete missions? Absolutely. She leaned forward. But if you're asking whether I'm some kind of weapon you can just point at targets and fire, the answer is no. I make my own decisions, I choose my own missions. And if you don't like that, you can find someone else. The room went dead silent. Palmer and Kessler exchanged glances. Then Palmer smiled, thin, calculating. You misunderstand, Sergeant. We're not trying to control you. We're trying to recruit you. Arya blinked. What? There's a unit, Kessler said, highly classified, operates outside normal military channels, handles threats that conventional forces can't address. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, sliding it across the table. We want you to join it. Arya picked up the paper. It was mostly redacted, black bars covering names, locations, mission details. But one phrase stood out in clear text. Enhanced Operator Response Unit. What is this? Arya asked. Exactly what it sounds like, Palmer said. A team designed to counter enhanced threats. Operatives like Koval, like the other survivors from those research programs. People with abilities beyond normal human parameters. He paused. We need someone who understands how they think, how they fight, how to beat them. And you think that's me? We know it is. Arya set the paper down. What if I refuse? Then you go back to your regular unit, Kessler said. Continue your army career. Live a normal life. She paused. Until the next Koval shows up, the next enhanced operative who threatens American lives, and you spend the rest of your days wondering if you could have stopped them. Arya's jaw worked. Palmer stood, buttoning his jacket. You don't have to decide right now. Take some time. Think it over. But understand this. What you did in Libya wasn't a one-time thing. It's who you are. And people like you don't get to sit on the sidelines, not when there are others out there who will use their abilities to hurt people instead of save them. He nodded to Kessler, and they both headed for the door. Before leaving, Palmer glanced back. We'll be in touch, Sergeant. Then they were gone. The room exhaled collectively. Hendricks whistled low. Well, that was intense. Understatement, Reyes muttered. Carver stood. Everyone out, except Vance. The team filed out quickly, leaving Arya alone with Carver and Cole. Carver walked to the window, staring out at the desert beyond. They're not wrong, you know. About what? About you being different. About this being who you are. He turned to face her. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've seen a lot of soldiers, a lot of operators, and I've learned to recognize the ones who are just doing a job versus the ones who are built for it. He paused. You're the latter. Arya said nothing. Cole spoke up. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I don't know. That's fair, Cole said. This is a lot to process. But you need to understand something. Palmer and Kessler might have come off as cold, but they're not wrong about the threat. There are enhanced operatives out there. We've tracked at least 8 confirmed cases in the last 2 years. Eastern Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and they're getting bolder. What do they want? Depends on who's pulling their strings. Some work for governments. Others are mercenaries. A few have gone completely rogue, using their abilities for personal gain. He pulled up a holographic display, showing a map with red dots scattered across several continents. This is what we know. Each dot represents a confirmed or suspected enhanced operative. And this? He zoomed in on a cluster of dots in Eastern Europe. This is the highest concentration. Former Soviet facilities. Experimental programs that never officially shut down. Arya studied the map. And you want me to help track them? We want you to do more than track them, Carver said. We want you to lead the unit that stops them. Arya's head snapped up. Lead? You've got the skills, the experience, the unique perspective. Carver walked back to the table. And more importantly, you've got something they don't. What's that? A conscience. The words hung in the air. Carver continued. Most enhanced operatives were raised in systems that dehumanized them, turned them into weapons. You were different. You had parents who cared, even if their methods were flawed. You ended up in foster care, developed empathy, learned to value life. He paused. That's what makes you dangerous to them. Because you're not just enhanced, you're enhanced with humanity intact. Arya looked down at her hands. They were steady, strong, capable of things most people couldn't imagine, but they were also the hands of a 6-year-old girl who'd been strapped to a table and subjected to experiments she couldn't understand. I need time, she said quietly. Take it, Carver replied, but not too much. The world doesn't wait for anyone to be ready. That night, Arya sat alone in the observation tower overlooking the desert. The stars were brilliant out here. No light pollution, no interference, just infinite points of light against endless darkness. Footsteps on the metal stairs. Reyes climbed up, carrying 2 bottles of water. She handed one to Arya without a word, then sat beside her. They drank in silence. Finally, Reyes spoke. You know, I almost walked away once. Arya glanced at her. From what? From all of this. The missions, the danger, the weight of it. Reyes stared out at the horizon. I just lost my entire team in Fallujah. IED. I was the only survivor, and I kept thinking, what's the point? We save one group, another needs saving. We stop one threat, 3 more pop up. It's endless. What changed your mind? I met a kid in a refugee camp, maybe 7 years old. She'd lost her parents to an airstrike, lost her home, lost everything. Reyes paused. But she was still smiling, still playing with other kids, still hoping for something better. And I realized that hope exists because people like us do the hard jobs, the impossible jobs. We create the space where hope can survive. Arya absorbed that. I'm not saying you have to join Palmer's unit, Reyes continued. That's your call. But I'm saying that what you can do, what you were built to do, it matters. It saves lives. And that's worth something. Even if I didn't choose it, especially then, because you could have become bitter. You could have used your abilities for yourself, but you didn't. You used them to save 30 contractors, 3 journalists. How many others we don't even know about? Reyes looked at her. That's not programming, Vance. That's character. Arya felt something tighten in her chest. Besides, Reyes added with a slight smile, someone's got to keep Hendricks humble. Might as well be you. Despite everything, Arya smiled. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. 3 days later, Arya stood in Carver's office. He looked up from his desk. You've made a decision. I have. And? Arya set a signed document on his desk. I'll join the unit, on one condition. Carver picked up the document, scanning it. Which is? I choose the missions. If something doesn't sit right, if I think it crosses a line, I walk. No questions. No repercussions. Carver was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Agreed. Just like that? Just like that. He stood, extending his hand. Welcome to the program, Vance. Officially. She shook it. One more thing, Carver said. He pulled out a small box from his desk drawer, handing it to her. Inside was a new insignia, the same stylized dagger Cole wore, but with a subtle difference. A single star above the blade. Team leader, Carver explained, you'll be building your own unit, selecting operators, running missions. He paused. It's a lot of responsibility. I can handle it. I know you can. That's why I'm giving it to you. He sat back down. Your first assignment comes in 48 hours. Intel suggests a former Soviet-enhanced operative is operating in the Balkans, targeting NATO officials. We need him stopped before he starts a diplomatic incident. I'll need a team. Pick whoever you want from the available roster. Hendricks and Reyes have already volunteered. Arya smiled slightly. Of course they have. One more thing. Carver's expression turned serious. The more you dig into this world, the world of enhanced operatives, the more you're going to learn about your own past. About what was done to you. What your parents were involved in. He paused. Are you ready for that? Arya met his eyes. I don't know, but I'm done running from it. Good answer. She turned to leave. Vance? She stopped. For what it's worth, Carver said quietly, I'm glad you're here. Glad you chose this path. The world's a darker place than most people know. But people like you, you're the light that keeps it from going completely black. Arya didn't respond, but she nodded once before leaving. Later that evening, Arya walked alone through the facility grounds. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the desert sand. In the distance, she could see operators running drills, preparing for missions she'd never know about. She thought about the little girl who'd been strapped to a table in a white room, the girl who'd lost her parents, the girl who'd been experimented on, enhanced, turned into something other than normal. That girl had been terrified, broken, lost, but she'd survived. And somewhere along the way, she'd become something else. Not a weapon, not just a soldier, something more. Arya pulled out her phone, a secure device issued by Carver. She scrolled to a secure message app and typed a single line. Ready for assignment. Send coordinates. The response came 30 seconds later. Welcome to the team, Ghost. Ghost. She smiled slightly. Yeah, that fit. Because that's what she'd always been. Invisible, silent, striking from the shadows. But now, she wasn't just surviving. She was hunting. And somewhere out there, an enhanced operative in the Balkans had no idea what was coming for him. Arya pocketed the phone and turned back toward the barracks. Her team was waiting. Her mission was clear. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from what she was. She was embracing it. Because the ghosts of her past had shaped her. But they didn't control her. Not anymore. She did. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Hendricks found her in the armory, already prepping gear. Heard we're going to the Balkans, he said. We are. Heard you're leading. I am. He nodded slowly. Good. About time someone competent took charge. He paused. For the record, I'm glad it's you. Arya looked up. Even after all your doubts? Especially after. Because you proved me wrong, and that's exactly the kind of person I want leading me into a firefight. He extended his hand. Welcome to command, Ghost. She shook it. Reyes appeared in the doorway. Ghost? That's what we're calling her. Seems fitting, Hendricks said. Reyes grinned. I like it. Has a nice ring to it. Arya shook her head, but she was smiling. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt since she was 6 years old. She felt like she belonged, not because of what had been done to her, but because of what she'd chosen to become. And that was a power no experiment could ever create. The Balkans were colder than the desert. Arya stood on a ridge overlooking a valley town in rural Bosnia, breath misting in the pre-dawn air. Below, lights flickered in scattered windows. Somewhere down there, a man named Viktor Sokolov was sleeping, or pretending to. Hendricks crouched beside her, scanning the valley through thermal optics. Target building is the two-story structure on the eastern edge. Heat signatures show 2 occupants, one on the ground floor, one upstairs. Which one is Sokolov? Arya asked. Intel says upstairs, but Intel's been wrong before. Reyes checked her watch. QRF is 10 minutes out. We've got a narrow window. Arya studied the terrain. The town sat in a natural bowl, surrounded by forested hills. Only 2 roads in, both easily monitored. Sokolov had chosen his location well, isolated, defensible, with clear sightlines in all directions. But he hadn't counted on someone who could become invisible. There, Arya pointed to a stream cutting through the valley. Water approach. I'll insert there, move through the drainage system, come up inside the building's perimeter. Hendricks frowned. That puts you underwater for at least 20 minutes, in near-freezing temps. I've done worse. Yeah, we know. Doesn't make it smart. Arya looked at him. You got a better idea? He didn't. All right then. She checked her gear one final time. Suppressed sidearm, knife, rebreather, and her rifle, always the rifle. Give me 25 minutes. If I'm not in position by then, abort and extract. Reyes grabbed her arm. Hey, be careful down there. Sokolov's not Koval. He's faster, smarter, and he knows someone's coming. How do you know? Because if I were him, I'd know. Enhanced operatives don't survive this long by being careless. Arya nodded. Then I'll just have to be more careful. She moved down the ridge, disappearing into the tree line. Behind her, Hendricks muttered, I really hope she knows what she's doing. Reyes didn't answer. The water was colder than Arya expected. She slipped into the stream silently, letting the current take her. The rebreather fed oxygen in measured doses. Her pulse slowed. Body temperature began to drop. Training took over. She drifted through the darkness, using minimal movement to navigate. The stream narrowed, becoming a drainage culvert that ran beneath the town. Concrete walls closed in. No light. No sound except the rush of water. 20 minutes passed. Finally, she reached a grate, rusted metal, barely secured. She pried it open with her knife, slipping through into a larger tunnel system. Storm drains. Old Soviet-era infrastructure. Forgotten, but functional. She moved through them like a ghost, water dripping from her suit, leaving no trace. Above, she could hear footsteps. Voices. Normal people going about their morning routines, unaware of what was happening beneath their feet. She found an access point, a maintenance ladder leading up to street level. Climbed it slowly, listening. The hatch above was locked from the inside. She picked it in 40 seconds. Emerged into an alley 3 buildings away from her target. Dawn was breaking now, pale light bleeding across the sky. She had maybe 10 minutes before full daylight. Arya moved along the building's edge, staying in shadows. Her thermal vision picked up the 2 heat signatures Hendricks had mentioned. Ground floor, stationary, probably sleeping. Second floor, moving, pacing. That was Sokolov. She circled to the rear entrance, a reinforced door with a biometric lock. Standard security for someone trying to stay hidden. Arya pulled out a small device from her kit, a lock bypass unit designed to clone fingerprints from residual oils. She pressed it against the scanner. 3 seconds. Click. The door opened. She was inside. The interior was sparse. Bare walls. Minimal furniture. Everything designed for quick evacuation. Sokolov wasn't living here. He was hiding here. Arya moved through the ground floor, clearing rooms silently. The sleeping occupant turned out to be a woman, mid-30s, civilian clothes, no weapons visible. Not a threat. Not yet. Upstairs, the pacing continued. Arya climbed the stairs 1 step at a time, rifle raised. Her breathing was controlled, heartbeat steady. At the top, a hallway. 2 doors, 1 open, 1 closed. The pacing came from the closed door. She moved toward it, and then stopped. Something was wrong. The pacing was too regular, too predictable, like a recording on loop. Arya's instincts screamed. She spun. Viktor Sokolov stood at the end of the hallway, a pistol aimed at her head. "Drop it," he said in accented English. Arya didn't move. Sokolov was tall, lean, with sharp features and eyes that processed everything in microseconds, just like hers. "I said drop it." His finger tightened on the trigger. Arya lowered her rifle slowly, setting it on the floor. "Kick it away." She did. Sokolov stepped closer, keeping the pistol trained on her. "You're good, very good. Most operators would have walked right into that room and died." He smiled, cold, humorless. "But you sensed it, the pattern, the setup." Arya said nothing. "Who sent you?" Sokolov asked. "CIA, MI6, Mossad? Does it matter?" "Not really. They all want the same thing, me dead." He tilted his head, studying her. "But you're different, I can tell. The way you move, the way you think." His eyes narrowed. "You're enhanced." Arya's jaw tightened. "Yes," Sokolov said, reading her silence. "I thought so. Which facility?" "I don't know." "Liar. Everyone remembers, even if they don't want to." He stepped closer. "Let me guess. Eastern Europe? Maybe the Baltic states? Or perhaps one of the American black sites?" Arya's hands were at her sides, relaxed but ready. "Why does it matter?" "Because we're the same, you and I, products of the same ambition, the same hubris. They tried to make us into weapons, and instead they made us into something they couldn't control." He lowered the pistol slightly. "You feel it, don't you? The disconnect. The knowledge that you're different. That you'll never be normal." "I don't want to be normal." "Neither do I. That's why I'm still alive." Sokolov smiled. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Tell whoever sent you that I'm gone. Disappeared. And in exchange, I won't kill you. And if I refuse, then we find out who's faster." Arya's eyes flicked to her rifle, 3 meters away, too far. Her sidearm was closer, but still holstered. Sokolov's pistol was already aimed. The odds weren't good, but she'd beaten worse. "Or," Sokolov continued, "you could join me. There are others like us. A network. We help each other, protect each other from people who'd use us as tools." He paused. "You don't have to be their weapon anymore." "I'm not their weapon. I'm my own." "Are you? Or are you just following orders like a good soldier?" Arya's voice was quiet. "I choose my missions." "But they choose the targets. They point you at people like me and tell you we're threats." Sokolov shook his head. "I've killed 4 NATO officials. Do you know why?" "Money, power, take your pick. Justice." His voice hardened. "Those officials authorized black sites where people like us were created. They signed off on experiments that destroyed children's lives. They're not innocent, and they don't get to walk away clean." "So you're judge, jury, and executioner?" "Someone has to be." Arya studied him. "You're not wrong about what they did, about what we are. But killing them won't change it, won't undo it. No, but it'll make them think twice before they do it again. Or it'll make them create more of us, better versions, until there's an entire generation of enhanced operatives with no conscience, no humanity, just weapons. Arya took a step forward. You want to stop the cycle? Then stop killing. Help us shut down the programs that are still running. Sokolov's expression flickered. Surprise, then suspicion. Us? There's a unit. Enhanced operatives working to counter other enhanced threats, to find and close the facilities that are still active. She paused. You could be part of that. Use your abilities for something other than revenge. And you trust them? The people giving you orders? I trust myself. And I choose to believe that stopping more children from going through what we did is worth the risk. Sokolov was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, short, bitter. You're naive. They'll use you until you're not useful anymore, then discard you like everyone else. Maybe. Or maybe I'll use them to make a real difference. There's no such thing as... Arya moved. Her hand snapped to her sidearm in a blur of motion. Sokolov's pistol swung toward her. Both weapons fired simultaneously. The hallway erupted in thunder. Arya felt the bullet graze her shoulder. Hot. Sharp. Her own shot caught Sokolov's center mass. He staggered back, eyes wide with shock. Not at being shot. At being shot by someone as fast as him. He dropped to one knee, blood spreading across his shirt. Impossible. Arya kept her weapon trained on him. It's over, Victor. No. He coughed, red flecks on his lips. It's never over. There are dozens more like me. Hundreds. And they're coming for all of you. Then we'll deal with them when they come. Sokolov smiled, genuine this time. You really believe that, don't you? That you can save everyone? I can try. That's what makes you dangerous. His breathing was labored now. Not your skills, your hope. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Hendricks and Reyes, weapons drawn. Clear! Hendricks shouted. Reyes rushed to Arya. You hit? Graze. I'm fine. Sokolov slumped against the wall, his pistol clattering to the floor. Tell your people. Tell them it's too late. The old programs might be shut down, but new ones are starting. Private contractors. Rogue governments. The demand for enhanced soldiers is too high. Supply will follow. Arya knelt beside him. Then help us stop them. Tell us where they are. Why would I do that? Because despite everything, you don't want more kids to suffer what we did. I can see it in your eyes. Sokolov's laugh turned into a cough. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. You're right, I don't. He reached into his pocket slowly. Hendricks' weapon snapped up, but Sokolov just pulled out a USB drive, pressing it into Arya's hand. Everything I know, facilities, names, locations. It's not much, but it's a start. Arya took it. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make it count. His eyes were fading now. And if you ever get tired of being their weapon, there are others who will help you disappear. I won't need to disappear. Everyone does eventually. Then his eyes closed. Medics rushed in seconds later, but Arya already knew. The wound was fatal. Sokolov had known it too. He'd chosen his last act. Information instead of defiance. Cooperation instead of revenge. Maybe there was hope, after all. 6 hours later, Arya sat in a debriefing room at the facility. Carver and Cole were there. Palmer and Kessler on a secure video link. The USB drive contained significant intelligence, Palmer said. 3 active facilities. 2 in Eastern Europe, 1 in Southeast Asia. Plus names of key researchers and financiers. He paused. This is exactly the kind of breakthrough we needed. Sokolov didn't have to give it to you, Kessler added, looking at Arya through the screen. He could have died without saying anything. What changed his mind? Arya thought about it. I told him the truth, that we're not trying to hunt enhanced operatives. We're trying to stop the systems that create them. And he believed you? I think he wanted to believe. He was tired, angry, but not at us, at the people who made him what he is. Arya paused. He saw a chance to strike back at them instead of us. So he took it. Carver nodded slowly. That's good instinct, Vance. Turning an enemy asset into an information source. He wasn't an enemy. He was a victim who became a killer because he didn't see another option. Doesn't change the fact that he murdered 4 people. No. But it means there might be others like him who'd choose differently if given the chance. Palmer leaned forward on the screen. Are you suggesting we recruit hostile enhanced operatives? I'm suggesting we offer them a choice. Work with us to shut down the programs, or face the consequences. Arya met his gaze. Fear makes enemies. Options create allies. Kessler's expression was skeptical. That's a risky strategy. Less risky than fighting them all one by one. Palmer and Kessler exchanged glances, then Palmer nodded. All right, we'll explore that approach. But carefully. Any recruitment attempts go through proper vetting. Understood. The video link ended. Carver stood, stretching. Well, that went better than expected. You've got a knack for this, Vance. Leadership, strategy, diplomacy. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the most radical thing you can do. He headed for the door, then paused. Oh, one more thing. Your team, Hendricks and Reyes, they've requested permanent assignment to your unit, if you'll have them. Arya smiled slightly. Yeah, I'll have them. Good, because you're going to need them. Carver glanced back. That USB drive. It's just the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead. I'm ready. I know you are. That's why I'm not worried. He left. Cole remained, arms crossed, studying her. You did good out there, kept your head, made the hard call when you needed to. Sokolov almost killed me, but he didn't, because you were faster, better, and because you gave him a reason to choose differently in his final moments. Cole paused. That's leadership, Vance, not just tactics. Heart. Arya looked down at the USB drive still in her hand. How many more are out there, you think? People like Victor, like me. Honestly, probably more than we know. Cole's voice was gentle. But you can't save them all. I can try. Yes, you can. Just don't lose yourself in the process. What do you mean? Cole walked to the window, staring out at the desert sunset. I've seen a lot of operators burn out, not from combat, from caring too much, from carrying the weight of every mission, every life, every decision. He looked at her. You've got a gift, Vance, not just your abilities, your compassion, but compassion without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Remember that. Arya absorbed his words. I will. Cole nodded. Good. Now get some rest. You've earned it. He left. Arya sat alone in the empty room, the USB drive small and heavy in her palm. 3 facilities, dozens of potential victims, maybe hundreds, children who'd be subjected to the same experiments she'd endured, unless someone stopped it. She stood, pocketing the drive. Yeah, she'd stop it. Because that's what she did now. Not because someone ordered her to, but because she chose to. 3 months later, the first facility was shut down. Arya led the raid personally, a surgical strike in rural Ukraine. No casualties. 12 children extracted, ranging in age from 5 to 14. All of them enhanced in various ways. All of them traumatized. Watching them being loaded onto transport helicopters, wrapped in blankets and clutching stuffed animals provided by the medical team, Arya felt something shift inside her. These kids would get a choice, a real childhood, therapy, education, a chance to be more than weapons. It didn't erase what had been done to them, but it gave them a future. Hendricks approached, tactical vest still on. That's 12 lives, Ghost. 12 kids who won't become the next Koval or Sokolov. Reyes stood beside him. Not bad for 3 months' work. Arya watched the helicopters lift off, disappearing into the dusk. 2 more facilities to go. We'll get them, Hendricks said confidently. Yeah, we will. They stood together in silence, watching the sky. Later that night, back at the facility, Arya found Carver in his office. He looked up as she entered. Heard the mission was a success. Congratulations. Thanks. She sat across from him. I wanted to ask you something. Shoot. Those 12 kids, what happens to them now? They'll be placed in a specialized care program. Medical treatment, psychological counseling, eventually adoptive families if possible. He paused. Why? I want to stay in touch with them, if they'll let me. Carver's eyebrows rose. That's unusual. So am I. He smiled. Fair point. I'll arrange it. But Vance, don't let it become a burden. You can't fix everything for them. I know, but maybe I can show them that what was done to them doesn't define who they become. She paused. Someone should have shown me that when I was their age. Carver's expression softened. You're a good person, Vance. Better than this job deserves. Maybe. Or maybe this job needs good people more than we think. Maybe so. She stood to leave. Vance? She turned. Your parents, Carver said carefully. The research they did, the experiments. Do you ever wonder if they regretted it? Arya was quiet for a moment. Every day. But I'll never know. So instead, I choose to believe they loved me, that they thought they were helping, and that if they could see what I've become, not the enhanced parts, but the choices I make, they'd be proud. I think they would be. Arya nodded and left. It's 1 year later. Arya stood on a stage in a secure Pentagon briefing room, facing an audience of military brass, intelligence officials, and government leaders. Behind her, a screen displayed the results. 3 facilities shut down, 47 children rescued, 18 hostile enhanced operatives neutralized or turned, 0 civilian casualties. Palmer stood at the podium beside her. In the past year, the Enhanced Operator Response Unit has exceeded every expectation. They've dismantled human trafficking networks disguised as research facilities. They've prevented international incidents, and they've proven that enhanced operatives can be assets for peace rather than weapons of chaos. He turned to Arya. Sergeant Vance has led this unit with exceptional skill and integrity. It is my honor to recommend her immediate promotion to lieutenant and commendation for extraordinary service. Applause filled the room. Arya stood at attention, her dress uniform crisp, medals gleaming. But her mind was elsewhere, on 12 kids in Ukraine who were learning to play soccer for the first time, on 3 journalists in Libya who'd gone home to their families, on 30 contractors who'd watched their children grow up because someone made an impossible shot from a freezing canal. This wasn't about medals or promotions. It was about the quiet victories, the lives saved, the futures preserved. After the ceremony, Hendricks and Reyes found her outside. Lieutenant Vance, Hendricks said with mock formality, has a nice ring to it. Don't start, Reyes grinned. Too late. You're stuck with us now, and we're calling you LT forever. Despite herself, Arya smiled. They walked together through the Pentagon corridors, their boots echoing in sync. You know, Reyes said, a year ago you were just a staff sergeant nobody believed in. Now you're running the most classified unit in the intelligence community. That's pretty impressive. I had help. Yeah, but you had the guts to take the shot when it mattered, Hendricks added, literally and figuratively. They reached the exit, stepping out into Washington, D.C. twilight. The city sprawled before them, millions of lives, each one unaware of the shadows being fought to keep them safe. What's next? Reyes asked. Arya thought about the USB drive in her desk, about the encrypted files suggesting more facilities, more programs, more children at risk. Next, she said quietly, we keep going, until every kid like us gets a choice about who they become. Hendricks nodded. Then let's get to work. They walked into the fading light together, 3 soldiers who'd been broken, rebuilt, and transformed into something more than weapons. They were hope. They were justice. They were the ghosts that kept the darkness at bay. That night, Arya returned to her apartment, small, Spartan, functional. On her desk sat a photo. Recent. Taken at the Ukrainian facility after the rescue. 12 children smiling, some tentatively, others with genuine joy. And in the back, barely visible, Arya standing with them. She picked up the photo, studying those young faces. Once, she'd been one of them. Lost. Afraid. Uncertain. But she'd survived. And more than that, she'd chosen to become someone who protected others from the same fate. That choice had defined her more than any experiment ever could. Her phone buzzed. A message from Carver. New intel. Possible facility in Malaysia. Your call. Arya looked at the photo one more time, then set it down gently. She typed her response. We're on it. Because that's what she did now. She hunted the monsters so others wouldn't have to. She stood between the innocent and the darkness. And she did it not because she was programmed to, but because she chose to. Every single day. The water had once nearly broken her, freezing, suffocating, relentless. But she'd learned its secret. You don't fight the current. You become it. Silent, patient, unstoppable. And when the moment comes, you strike with a force no one sees coming. That was her power. Not the enhancements, not the training, but the choice to use everything she'd been given and everything that had been taken to make the world just a little bit safer. One mission at a time. One life at a time. One choice at a time. Arya Vance closed her eyes, breathing slowly. Tomorrow, there would be another mission, another threat, another chance to make a difference. But tonight, she allowed herself something she'd rarely permitted. Peace, because she'd finally accepted the truth. She wasn't broken. She was forged. And the strongest steel is made in the hottest fire. True power isn't in refusing to break. It's in choosing how you rebuild. The ghosts of your past don't have to haunt you. They can guide you toward becoming something greater than you ever imagined.